She says to me, you're kind of annoying.
Wait a minute. Can we unpack? First of all, could I have given you a more annoying opportunity to say that? And how happy I am that, oh, good, at least we both are.
Yeah.
Literally cut off basically a stranger during this life lesson, which I asked him to tell me. To show a video of his balls, which I made him show me. We'll be right back.
Scoot doo, blabbity blue, scoop dee. Oh yeah!
No. Oh, bro, let me tell you, if I take an edible, I'm gonna be fucking paranoid as shit.
Is there any way of getting you so our eye line is less?
How's that? I do all my own shit too. This always happens to me. There's only a few people that actually do their podcast themselves. Every time I'm on a podcast, it's like a set of like 5 or 6 people. I'm like, fuck, man, maybe I'm doing this wrong.
Put so much time into something that nobody notices.
100%. I think that's the shit too. Like when you put all this time into all the shit that you love, and then all of a sudden they're like, they don't even care. They're like, who the fuck cares?
You just got camera. All right. How are our levels?
Hello. Check.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Awesome.
Yeah? You happy?
I like it.
All right. Who are you?
And I was like, oh, fuck, he's really not prepared today.
No. Nice to meat you, man. Thanks for coming over.
No, perfect. We're trying to get this done. Last time it didn't happen.
Yeah, there was 2 times.
I know.
We both had to reschedule.
I know.
How much of your reschedule was a power play?
Nothing at all. At all. Yeah, the fucking funny thing is, like, I'm all over the place. So I feel like most people who just are in comedy or just do shit in general, like us doing our own schedules is the fucking worst thing ever. Like,
What do you mean? You mean because of all the things you have to do?
no, I'm just an asshole. Like, I don't fucking remember shit. And then COVID really fucked me up because it fucked up my short-term memory.
Yeah, you had COVID. You just got over it a month ago?
Yeah, about a month. So, like, I caught it in December. And then, I don't really know shit about it. Everybody talks about the general effects that you'll or side effects from COVID. One thing I didn't know, it fucks up your short-term memory. Like, that's been something that people have been talking about. So you get like this brain fog, which sucks because I write. So like, I would be working on shit and then my mind would just go blank and I'd just be fucked. So it was like that for about a month and a half. And then just recently it started becoming okay.
So you had it from December, January, and now you're getting okay.
Yeah. So December I caught it early on, and then
do you know where you got it?
Oh, I got it from my buddy Bart. Fucking Wuhan Bart, you bitch.
Shout out to Wuhan Bart. We'll put his Instagram handle up here. At Wuhan Bart.
So like, I've been generally careful about it. I've been taking COVID really seriously, but then there was the Tyson fight. And then he invited people over. We're like, you know what? I'll go and I'll watch this shit. 40 minutes in, I caught it somehow, and then what
made you think that the Tyson fight audience would be the people who have been keeping it clean?
I have no fucking idea. Literally, I walked in and I was like, this is a mistake, but I'm staying.
Did you really want to watch the fight?
I wanted to watch Roy Jones and Tyson fight.
Yeah.
And, the funny thing is I'm not broke enough where I can just buy it my fucking self. But then he invited me and I'm like, I don't want to pay for this shit. I'm just going to watch it at his house.
I don't know anything about almost everything. But sometimes I see something like, oh, McGregor's on tonight or whatever. I don't know. I'm not following it, but I go like, I want to watch it. Yeah. And shout out to my TYSO goblins. Thanks to you guys, I could afford it. But I look for probably almost 5 minutes. I couldn't figure out how to do it. Back in the day, you would just put on channel 0.
Yep.
And it was like $25.
Well, ESPN did that weird shit where they do the ESPN Plus thing now.
You have to get ESPN Plus and then something else.
Yeah, and it just became really convoluted. I started fucking hating it. That's why I just wait for somebody else to buy it and I just go over.
And for that reason, I was out.
And this is how I caught COVID.
Based on that math, I could have caught COVID when Mulan came out. Coincidentally, this is just Mulan because...
one of the worst fucking films ever.
I liked it.
Oh my God. You're the first person I've ever met that said that. That shit was trash.
We'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is great. They match you with a professional licensed therapist no matter where you are in the world. This was me before therapy. And this is me now. So, it's still a work in progress, but the wig is off. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month. Visit BetterHelp, HELP.com/TYSO. That's BetterHelp.com/TYSO for 10% off your first month. Hey, listen, man, we're sponsored by Disney, okay?
Okay.
So just look to camera, snap, and say, and we're back.
And we're back.
So Disney, I had never seen the cartoon Mulan. I'm a Disney guy. I've seen all of them. I missed Mulan. I hadn't seen Frozen until last night.
Last night?
Yeah. When you don't see something after, a month.
Right. You don't see it.
on
I
to the
get
next.
that. I get that.
I guess not all of them. But anyway, so I'm at home over the holidays, and we wanted to watch Mulan. But Disney Plus did that same thing where they're like, you could see it early, but you have to have Disney Plus. But then you also have to pay like $30.
Yeah.
So I waited. So I don't know if
Smart
I'm
man.
using this right, but Small World?
Let me tell you something. That movie, I trashed that movie so hard, and it was hard because, I felt like they were making every Asian American want to love that film, right? So anything that's Asian and it's hot right now, if you are Asian in the entertainment space, you have to say good things. And so I waited a good month for people to say good things.
Out of respect.
Out of respect. Out of honor.
How do you say that? What are you?
I'm Korean.
No, I'm saying, are you more a comedian or more an entrepreneur? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm Korean. No.
No, you fucking asshole.
So out of respect for all Asians.
Yeah, there's this idea of like solidarity, which I understand. That's why I didn't say anything for a good month. And then when everybody got to celebrate, I laid out my real opinion. I was like, this shit is fucking hot garbage.
So what was it, the narrative of it, or did it play into some type of stereotypes that you didn't like?
No, it was not. That's just a really bad film. Like the action was really bad. The choreography was really bad. It was so stupid. Here's the biggest issue that I had with it too. Like the original Mulan film, the cartoon, I don't remember much of it, but I do remember them just speaking regular fucking English. Right? They're not speaking any like Mandarin or anything in the film. I mean, a little bit here and there, but these guys, they were talking as if they were like semi-retarded. They were just like, oh, you wear the armor? I wear the armor. I'm like, why the fuck is everybody talking in this broken English? Like, you speak English. Just speak fucking English. So it was just weird thing that they were doing in the film. And then on top of that, like, from a just like a filmmaking perspective in general, they made this girl Superman or Superwoman right in the beginning. Like, she just has these superpowers. There's no growth in the character for you to follow along. So I'm like, well, what's the whole point of me watching this film? She just woke up dope.
I did like the movie. But I had a complaint during it. 2 complaints, but one was how loud my dad was eating. The main complaint and the only complaint I had about the movie was that. I said to my girlfriend, she's starting too good.
Yeah.
But I love movies, I love music, I love the whole thing.
And it was hard because, a few of my friends are on there. So it was, I think the writing was very odd for it too, right? The dialogue was so short. And, for something that, for like character development's sake, they did the broken English thing, and when they spoke, they didn't really say much. So it was hard for me to really fall in love with any of the characters. They did this whole, I'm not saying that you need to have like a complete romantic interest, but they just met on the bridge, they kind of like shook hands and they disappeared. It just kind of missed all the marks.
Have you seen Frozen?
I like Frozen.
Anna meets a guy during the daytime by a canoe. 8 hours later, he proposes to her. She says yes.
Well, she's a fucking psychopath. I love it.
My mother and my father, they met on a Friday. My dad proposed to her on a Sunday.
And then you were born.
On a Tuesday.
So what are you?
Korean.
No, I mean, what do you do?
Oh. We'll be right back. If you're looking for just the right flooring, you need choices. And at Marshall Carpet One, you'll certainly find them.
And we're back. Oriental rugs? I happen to be Oriental. That's fucking fantastic.
Is Oriental a word that you're allowed to say? Well, you probably can.
I heard like Oriental was like, it's like non-racial out in Europe. Like that's the proper way to address an Asian person out there. Over here, I guess people feel a certain way about it. I don't really fucking care.
What is it though? Because I don't think it's I mean, what do I know? But it's not as much as like a racist term as an improper term, or is it considered more like, is there a stigma to it?
Man, shit, I don't even know, man. Like the whole the Asian identity.
Could you tell me in a broken Asian accent though?
See, I don't know really because I don't know. Maybe it's the racial identity. I don't know. But
that's so good. It's so good though.
It is.
What? I'll get to it. But I want to finish what you were saying, but then I have a question about the accent.
I feel like the racial identity thing is a hot topic now. Well, I kind of grew up very blessed, and I talk about this shit. And I grew up in an area where, my school, a majority of people were Asian. There was like 40% Asian, 40% black, then Mexican, and then white people were like this small 1 or 2%.
So 18% Mexican.
Yes, something like that. I don't do math, surprisingly. And then there was so I didn't like the whole racial, like the Asian identity. I never had to think about it because everybody kind of looked like me. But I think that's like a hot topic right now because I only found out recently that Asian people are only 5.6% of this nation's population. So everybody else has this like Asian identity crisis, which I feel for them because I was blessed enough that I didn't have to figure that shit out. So when people ask me stuff of, does the word Oriental bother you? I never had to think about it. So that's why when I say not to be insensitive or incredulous, like I just never had to think about that. So when somebody asks me, do you find that offensive?
Right.
I don't know. I've nobody had to look at me and call me Oriental. Everybody was Asian,
Is there something to also, I grew up in a very diverse area. I'm Jewish, a lot of Jews. Excuse me. I threw up in my mouth. I didn't realize how many Jews until just now.
You're just disgusted of yourself.
No, just a little burp. I apologize. Very diverse area. I wonder how much of, so when I hear, anti-Semitism is hot, everyone loves anti-Semitism, but there's a difference between being turned off, upset, and hurt even, versus being offended. And I don't know if it's because of the line of work that I'm in, the type of person I am, or growing up not recognizing anti-Semitism until I went to college. It doesn't, I don't get offended. Somebody says kike, fuck that person, but I'm not like, I'm not offended.
See, I don't even know what a kike is. You're the second Jewish person I've ever met in my life.
Really?
Yeah, Jackie was the first one. And then her parents, and then you.
Speaking of Jackie, I'll use that as a good transition. This is my first time. I just mounted my television, and through the mirror on the wide shot, I was wanting to get some TV action stuff, so I put on Best Leftovers.
I love it.
But it's distracting me because I'm seeing it, and I was waiting for either a commercial or to bring up Jackie and distracting, or I could really quick. I'm going to turn that off. But check out Best Leftovers on Netflix. You're in this business. You've been here for a while. You grew up with 18% to 19% Mexican people. Yeah. You didn't meet a Jew until how old are you?
I'm 32.
So until you were 31?
Yeah. So we just didn't have, well, I think my history teacher was Jewish, but I think like religiously Jewish, but not actually of Jewish descent. I could be wrong.
Oh, so he was
trying
to get in?
Yeah, man.
An anti-dentite?
Yeah, so what are like racial epithets for like Jewish people?
You could put Jackie on the cover of, so you've never met a Jew, and then you read the 5 pages and you're like, I get it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
I guess me and her together too, but she is, what are some of the Jewish stereotypes that you heard, and did Jackie satisfy?
The only thing that I know is like, would you guys save money well? I'm like, what the fuck?
Okay.
How is this a bad thing?
The Jewish stuff is like, I don't know. I don't know what the stereotypes are.
Yeah.
There's money. There's media. Like we like control the media.
Oh, so terrible.
There's big noses.
Oh, okay.
There is like making a lot of modifications on foods because they have a lot of gas problems. Those are the big 4.
These are very specific.
They're very specific. But Jackie just did your podcast, and you told me that you didn't know that we date because I reached out to you because of this show.
Yeah.
And did you guys talk at all about our relationship? Do you know anything about us?
She mentioned on the podcast that you guys are ex-boyfriend and girl. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, I had no idea. And I remember watching you because Bobby Lee came on your podcast a while ago. And then when she mentioned you, I decided to watch all your podcasts all over. I'm like, this guy's fucking weird.
Before we digressed away from the Milan, we were talking about you were bothered by the broken English. And then you did a voice, and you said it's great. So is there something, I used to do a joke, I used to do, it was more of like a premise of I can't do voices. I'm both singers and people who could do characters. Actually, I want to give a shout out to Amir, who's on my podcast, one of my friends who people could do all these different voices. It blows it's a magic trick. There's something about the Asian accent that is just, and I'm sorry, it's funny. It's funny. There's something funny about it. And when people do on stage, they do voices. You do British, Scottish. English is probably the biggest one. You can do all these different voices, Southern voices, Russian, German accents. But when you do an Asian accent, there's something intrinsically racist about it. I remember when that happened. That happened in around 2010. It's around the same time Entourage stopped saying the F word for gay people. Something happened right then where it's like, oh, people are becoming more aware of this.
You know, it's like for me in accents, it's weird, right? Because in comedy, like, I mean, who's your crowd? You know what I mean? And also, too, with the accent, if it's accurate, I'm okay with it. I think it's more about the accuracy, right? Because Russell Peters, he did the Chinese accent really well. I mean, he wasn't the first one to do it, but he was somebody outside of an Asian person that did it incredibly accurate. Like,
do white people think that Russell Peters is far removed from Asian?
I think so, even though he is Asian. But he understands like the cultural nuance behind it, right? That's why it was so fucking funny. Like when I remember watching him do it, and I was like, that's even better than mine. And it was so
yours was pretty good.
His shit was so fucking good, and I was in tears laughing. Not because of the accent, because he understood the inside jokes. And that's what makes it funny, right? Doing an accent just to do an accent is very, it's whatever. Like,
that's interesting. So there's something kind of about doing the voice that doesn't accompany the culture, that is just like, it's just one-dimensional, and that is saying that there's less to the culture, maybe?
It's more like you understand, like you're not laughing at the culture, you're a part of it. You know what I'm saying? So like back in the day, because my best friend is African, so I grew up around African people my whole life. So if I just did, I don't know, if I just did the accent, right?
It still sounded Asian to me.
I don't know. But but if we did it, and then if I just did it just to do it, people really wouldn't laugh. But because I know all these inside African jokes, it was funny to do it in a bit, right? Because everybody could relate. If they can't relate to it, what's so funny about it?
Now, you're not a stand-up, but you did stand-up, right?
I did stand-up for the longest time. So I started when I was 16. And then...
where are you from? I'm sorry. You said
Sacramento.
So you're from Sacramento. You started in Sacramento, or did you move to L.A. by that point?
I started in Sacramento when I was like 16 years old. And then I remember back in the day listening to Ari Spears talk about him doing stand-up. And then he had a fake ID just so he could do clubs, like, 18 and older clubs or whatever. So I was like, I'm going to get a fake ID.
To do stand-up?
To do stand-up. So I was this size when I was 14.
How'd you get a fake ID?
You have homies. They would just print that shit out. I mean, nobody really fucking cared at these clubs either. You just show them a fucking ID, they would just let you.
Ari Spears is one of the first live stand-up comedians I've ever seen.
Same here.
He's amazing. Cleveland Improv.
It was Ari Spears and then Bobby Lee. Those are the two people I saw doing stand-up for the first time ever. And I actually didn't know that Bobby Lee did stand-up because I just remember him from Mad TV and I remember Ari Spears from Mad TV. I didn't know that they were stand-ups. I just loved watching them as a kid. And so,
were you shocked at how dirty they were?
Well, I saw Bobby Lee's ball sack. Of course.
It's his opener and his closer.
And it was that shit is it's too true. But yeah, and then after that I wanted to do stand up, and it was weird
after seeing his ball sack, you're like, I could do this.
This is easy. No, but
the biggest insult you could possibly say is, I saw Bobby Lee show his nutsack. I'm like, anybody could do this. I was 14.
I was like, that's all it takes, But I remember just cracking up and laughing, and but I was doing music at the same time, which was so weird. Like I wanted to be a musician, and then stand up comedy came through in between. So I would just do intermittently both. Whatever opportunity would allow me to be on stage, I would just do it.
Do you remember one of your first bits?
I remember the first time I actually decided to do stand-up in front of a big crowd. It was when I was booked to do this variety show, and Sacramento would do a lot of this stuff, right? Just for like local talent. Mm-hmm. So it would just be music, stand-up comedy, all smashed into one. And I was booked as a musical talent. And so when I came through, I don't know what the fuck came over me, but I'm like, fuck this music thing. And I went to the guy who was hosting it, who's actually one of my really close friends. Like, hey, bro, I'm not going to do my music set anymore. I'm just going to do stand-up. And he's like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, well. I just walked on stage. The
crowd was there for music.
They were there for music, for me to do music anyways, because that's where
you had your own. How old are you? You're 14 or 16?
At this point, I was 16, 17.
So 16, 17, you had an audience already specifically coming to see you?
For music, yeah.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then...
You were playing and singing?
Playing and singing, yeah. So guitar and music and doing all that stuff. And then, yeah, I decided to do stand up instead. And it was weird because I didn't have a set. I was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to make jokes and see what happens. And, you know, when I look back at it, it was pretty terrible, but people were laughing. And I just remember that feeling of like, oh shit, I can make people laugh.
we actually, I have a surprise. We have a clip of your first set.
Oh, my very. Bobby Lee is my hero. And we're back. How the fuck did you get that footage?
I'll answer you after you do me a favor. From
Okay.
now on, we need you to snap and we're back.
Okay.
No, we got it.
Okay.
We got it, not this time.
Okay.
But I had Bobby send it to me. All right. Now I'm going to ask Bobby, hey, Bobby, could you film 3 seconds of you pretending to send me this clip? It's like, fuck me.
If he responds back to a fucking text.
So,
Here's another one from you. No
When?
response.
that's like-
November 5th now.
okay. So we're about a week and a half out.
Yeah. I'm going to record 8 mini holiday episodes to be released one at a time during 8 nights of Hanukkah.
The 8 Nights of TYSO. That's where you've seen some of these guys. You could check
I'm
those
going
out
to
at
decorate my
rickglassman.com.
apartment full holiday style. I want them all be previous guests of my podcast. Would you be one of them? Come over for 20 minutes, in and out, thinking I'm going to record them this month so I can edit them over Thanksgiving holiday. And then no response from me.
Jeez.
November 21st, right? What? You just do a handshake, you know what I mean? Right? Here we go, December 8th. No response by me. Would you mind forwarding me who you get your merchandise from? Not the design, but the manufacturer printer? Nothing. December 18th.
I'm feeling really. I'm feeling really like. I think I don't know for sure what the feeling is. I think it's embarrassed. So you're 16, 17. You somehow have your own audience already. They're coming to see you do music. We love the music that you're playing. We can't wait for some of our favorite songs. And you go, nope. And then you do stand up. And how did it go?
Well, the weird thing is that here's the thing that'd be funny before that. So I would get so nervous before I would sing. I would just make jokes before I would sing any songs. And so, you know, some people would see me as not like a stand-up, but they'd be like, oh, you're the guy that does jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, no, I'm a musician. They're like, no, you do jokes. You're a funny guy. And so I think like I kind of ignored that for a majority of the time because I love stand-up since I was a little kid. So I'm like, you know, well, fuck it. Let's just see what happens, right? If people know me as a funny guy that sings, let's just be a funny guy. Let's try this out. And, you know, looking back on it, I was super young. I mean, the set wasn't great, but I did make people laugh. So after that, I was like, I want to do comedy. Fuck this music thing, which, you know, I still enjoyed music, but it was like, let me just try to go 100% on this. And then after a while, I was working like 3 jobs. I was a full-time student. You know, my relationship with my parents weren't that great. So I had to figure out what I had to do in the meantime. And I wanted to finish up school and get
What'd you study?
What did I study? I was an undergrad for about 5.5 years. So it was like every fucking major that didn't matter. So I was a biz econ major first, and then I minored in like psych. What do you call that shit? It's been so
Anthropology?
No.
Communications? Sociology.
Sociology. It was biz econ, psych, sociology, and some other bullshit. I don't remember.
Also, I want you to know that TYSO does not stand for that those majors do not matter because those are very important.
There are fucking communications was another one, and they were all just kind of bunched up together.
Ironic that it took you so long to get to it. I think it was
and then to finish it off, I never finished.
Yeah.
So I had about a semester left before I decided to leave and come to LA because I was just like, fuck
So
it.
what are you, 20 then? No, you would have been 22.
This was a period of all the way up till I was 23, 24, around there, and then I moved to LA.
But you went to college at 18. You were there for 5.5 years?
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
so about.
Also,
5.5
who
years.
cares? I do this sometimes. I'm like
Yeah,
fucking
5.5
up the
years,
flow of the conversation. Was it a Tuesday or a Thursday?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It is about 5.5 years. So yeah, 23, 24 around there. So almost 6 years. And then I had like maybe a few units left that I decided just to leave and then go to LA because I had a viral video on YouTube that just went insane.
And was that the one that made you have short-term memory loss? With that? But I want to talk about your YouTube channel, but I don't want to get off track of this yet because this is so interesting to me. What is it about you who, and I've said this a few times now, but there's something about, even if it's not big, having your own, people coming to see you perform, even if it's 30 people and people coming to, I've been doing stand-up for 12 years. It wasn't, the last time I went on the road was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
People come out to the show, the amount of people that come out to see me was probably 20, if that, like that was a good one. It's hard to make an audience. You are doing well at something, then you do stand-up and something says kind of fuck music.
Yeah.
What was it about the laughs and or the genre of comedy that made you be like, I want to change gears?
You know what it is? It's just it feels good to make somebody forget about their bullshit, right? Because that's what comedy did for me. Because I grew up, you know, in a kind of like a rough neighborhood, and you know, like I think because I went through so much shit, I could laugh about anything. But that's how fortunate it was for me. I think a lot of people who have probably went through the stuff that I went through, they probably would have taken it in a negative way. But I had the ability to always laugh at things. And so when you can make somebody else laugh, it doesn't have to be stand-up. It could be through sketches or whatever, or just in conversation. It also makes you feel good that you can make somebody forget in that moment that they're having a shitty day.
Does music not do that?
Music doesn't really do, and also too, I think I just did music because it would get me pussy. That's really about it. So the motivation wasn't right. It was something that I enjoyed because of what it would get me versus how it made people feel.
So you were good at something, you were being validated, so why not? But then you found something that resonated with you more.
Yeah, and then so when stand-up was something that, and also too,
Did it get you pussy at 16? Were you getting pussy at 16?
18, around there. I mean, I think the weird thing about that is like with music, I also just was very mediocre at it. Like I was good for what it was, you know, and I think it had like a limit. I had a plateau to it. So even now I still do music here and there, but I don't really know music very well.
We actually have a clip of one of your earlier sets, if you don't mind. What do you guys think? You want to see it? Come on!
And we're back.
Yeah, I could see how that got you some pussy.
Yeah, I mean, comedy just felt better. It just felt right. And then when I was trying to do stand-up, I just had so much shit to do, right? Like the family life was all fucked up because I'm an Asian kid trying to do comedy. My dad didn't fucking like it. So we had a very bad relationship. I had to move out. I didn't talk to him for about a year and a half or so, or my mom. And then after that, I started doing YouTube. So I found out, well, while I'm going to school and I'm doing all this other shit, I need to get this creative outlet out because I couldn't really do stand-up at the time. I was trying to just graduate and get this shit over with, and I had to work like 3 jobs. So I started doing YouTube comedy sketches. And then after a while, I did this one video where I just started screaming into camera about this girl who was like, she made this racist rant about Asian people in the library being loud, which is very true.
It's because I grew up here. We're not polite. You don't even take off your shoes when you walk into my house.
Which is very true, but like, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna roast this girl and see what happens. And then overnight, that became like a viral sensation.
That was your first video?
That was the first video that went big.
You have 300 some million views now.
Maybe, I don't know.
Or is it 30?
I have no idea. I haven't checked.
Or do you only have 500 views?
Maybe about 500.
I know you have like 1.5 million subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
That started from that video.
Yeah, it started from that video, yeah.
Was there something about the success of that video that made you want to lean in even more?
It kind of gave me the validation, or just like something that I needed to just say, hey, just fucking quit school and let's get this going. And so my cousin, who's my manager now, he's like, listen, I live in LA. If you want to come out here and do something with whatever you have, I'll let you come and live with me for a little bit. I'll take care of you for a couple of months and just see what you can do. Because school's always going to be there. You know, I could always go back, finish up school.
It was his idea?
He was the one that kind of planted it in my head.
So he saw, wow, that video just did really well. Maybe he should come over here. Like almost a manager.
Yeah. And, you know, he was already in entertainment. So he was kind of nudging me towards that. And I think, like, for me anyways, like stand-up was something that was always scary. Comedy was scary to me in general. Mm-hmm. Like I have mad anxiety. I have like crazy anxiety, which was so weird. And one of the biggest reasons why I also enjoyed doing stand-up was because you have to learn how to get over that anxiety to even perform on stage. So
or accept it. I find it's accept like taking it on.
Yeah. And you know, people ask, like, when you do stand-up, are you nervous? I'm fucking nervous every fucking time.
Same.
Like my stomach hurts, I get butterflies, but I'd say fuck it and I just do it. Mm-hmm. And I see what happens because
Nike.
I just fucking Nike it. And it's because I had this quality about myself that I hated, that I still hate till this day. It's like I had this inability because of fear. It's like I wouldn't do things because I'm scared. Mm-hmm. So the only way I would be able to deal with it was to deal with it head on. Just say fuck it, stop being a little bitch and just see what happens. You're not going to die. And that's just how I would deal with it. And stand up was one of the ways that I would do it. But the other outcome was that people would laugh and it would make them feel better. So it was good on both levels.
Was there a moment where fear got in the way of you doing something that you resented or regretted so much that made you come to that decision?
I mean, one of the biggest life lessons that I had, actually, and I talk about this on my podcast, was the first time I ever got dumped. And I remember this girl so much because I valued myself based on what she told me I was. So she was my first girlfriend.
Yeah.
She made me feel like I was an important person. But the moment she dumped me, I was like, oh, I'm useless.
Yeah, you saw you through her eyes.
Exactly. And then after that, I was like, wait, hold on a second. What the fuck are you doing? And I remember because I was trying to scratch back into her life. And then she said one thing to me that changed my life. She goes,
and if you want to hear what that one thing is, make sure you stick around. We'll be right back.
Bobby Lee is my hero. She says to me, you're kind of annoying.
Wait a minute. Can we unpack? First of all, could I have given you a more annoying opportunity to say that? And how happy I am that, oh, good, at least we both are. Yeah. Literally cut off basically a stranger during this life lesson, which I asked him to tell me, to show a video of his balls, which I made him show me. We'll be right back. BetterHelp is an app that matches you with a professional licensed therapist within 48 hours. Take Your Shoes Off is more than just a top 3 comedy podcast in the game. It's also one of many rules on my obsessive-compulsive list. So when my girlfriend came here for a few months and was eating, doesn't know what a plate is, okay, olive oil all over the bottom of the olive oil containers, I had an option. It was to either throw a fit or go to therapy. So if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend who leaves all of the cupboard doors open and wipes her hands off on the couch and on the curtains, I think you better need some help. Or should I say, better help. If you're somebody who overthinks, overtouches, overwatches, and gets annoyed at everything, they also have a built-in messaging service, so you could send a message to your counselor at any time from the app. This isn't a crisis line. This is proper therapy that you get to do from the comfort of your own home. You'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor, BetterHelp.com/TYSO. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Visit BetterHelp, HELP.com/TYSO for 10% off your first month. My name's Rick Glassman. Betty, is there a good way to end a commercial? Should I sign off by saying, my name's Rick Glassman? I'm going to do it. My name's Rick Glassman. And we're back. So what did that mean to you?
So I remember she said this. It was like we went to the same community college together after I left UC Riverside and I came back.
Like a Van Wilder, but like B version.
Yeah. And then she comes out and she looks at me and she goes, you're kind of annoying. Mm-hmm. And I stopped. I'm like, bitch, what the fuck you mean I'm annoying? I'm not fucking annoying. And I understood what she meant. It's because I was just trying to scratch at her for attention and then all my value was based on her. That was the moment I realized how much of a fucking loser I am. I was like, you're a loser, bro. Like you want this girl's attention only because she validates your life. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, this has to stop. Like you have to find value in yourself first. So after that, I kind of flipped up my whole perspective about everything. It really opened my eyes about how much of a fucking loser I am.
Could I, because I'm connecting a lot to what you're saying. I've talked about on my podcast a fair amount that 4 years ago, I came into some self-awareness about me where my whole life I thought I'm this funny, charismatic guy, and I just found out I annoy everybody. And I connect to that strongly. So I'm not correcting you, but because people are listening and I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff, I would love to offer some perspective out loud. That idea of you saying how much of a loser you are or were, which I get so much. I think, and this is a little corny, spiritually corny, but there's something about the language that we use and the way we define things, and I'll make this about me, to think of how much of a loser or how annoying I was versus accepting that it's part of the process and like I needed to go through these things. I needed to have these misses or misters. I needed to have these people tell me, the people that would tell me, what a blessing that she told you you're annoying. Mm-hmm. Whether you agree or disagree, just to gain people's perspectives. And again, I'm wanting to ride this line of not correcting you and your feelings, but also speaking for myself and internalizing that you weren't a loser. You just didn't have the information yet. And I just think there's something really important because I've also found that a lot of my audience are socially awkward people. I think maybe I attract that because I am that, and they've sent me conversations about certain things that they connected to about being annoying and blah blah blah. And I just think it's really important to recognize that everybody sucks, you know. And it's just having that information to be able to, like, you know, we all cross the line, but just to know where the line is, so you could choose when you do it, and you could then on other people's time you could just, you know, lay back a little bit. And it's long-winded, and maybe we'll put that in 1.25 fast forward. Mark it. I'll look at it. But you weren't a loser. You were young, and it's part of the process.
Yeah, she was the best and worst thing that happened to me, right? So worst in the sense of she wasn't good for me in the sense because we got together during a time that I just didn't have an idea of myself. And the best thing, because she was the best life lesson, because I never did those bad stuff again, right? Like I was overly possessive of her in the sense of whenever she would go out or talk to somebody, I would get jealous. Like this, I look back and it doesn't make me cringe, but it's like, what
process, man?
Yeah, it's such a process, right? And that's why, and also too, it kind of goes into another conversation where I talked about I like getting older because I keep leveling up every fucking year. I get to look back at the mistakes and I say, well, don't do that again, and let's just do, you know.
I love leveling up, but I mean, I used to be jacked, and I'm a fucking. You never met a Jew, okay? I mean, my posture is anti-Semitic, but that's funny. Mark that. I want to remember that joke. That's why there's something kind of rough about how when Vine came out, I think Brent Morin, do you know Brent? One of my best friends, he's a comedian, so funny. But we were talking and like trying to figure out, you know, different people have had their hypothesis about the good and the bad of these things. And one of the things with Vine is he would call it's like year one comedians, first year comedians. We all were annoying. We all didn't know how to craft a joke, right? We had all these things, but pre-social media, more specifically pre-Vine, the people that weren't ready to have a stage didn't have a stage. So before you could get up in front of tons of people, you had to get good because that's the mechanism. You can't sell out a theater without doing 10 years of comedy at least, right?
Yeah.
But then Vine comes along and people get this following, not necessarily because they're funny, and sometimes, but lots of variables. Just the marketing, the viralistic of one thing was really good, that could be so hot, whatever the thing is. And it gave these people this stage. And it's a good thing how much would it suck if that was online? Like people, I'm watching these people doing these things and it's like, I get it, we've all been there. You're not funny yet. You're not good yet. You said, well, it was a rough period in your life because you didn't have an identity. You were 20.
Yeah.
Nobody at 20 does. But
100%.
Now people at 20 have millions of followers. And listen, it's not funny. It's not funny. And it's polluting the world. Because then you have people who are in their 30s who are like, that's the formula. So now they're doing their thing, and now you're not funny.
You know, I'm so glad you say that, right? Because it's weird. Like, I keep watching this stuff, right? And I think in my position, I'm just trying to do this thing where I'm trying to understand, right? Why is this funny? And one of the things that I came to a big conclusion was, oh, their audience is fucking 6 years old. Like, not as an insult. Like, when you look at the data, their average age is, I'm sorry, not 6. It was like 8 to like 12. So I'm like, I get it.
That
like,
market is so immature.
Yeah, so I'm like, I can understand why this does well. I think it's really weird when I see the 40-year-old man do the 8 to 12-year-old jokes, and then he comes into a space, and I've seen this multiple times before, and we've seen some of these people on the space try to do stand-up after that, and they bomb, and they don't understand why. It's like, well, I get millions of views. It's like, bitch, you were fucking performing to an 8-year-old. These are adults.
It's also a different sport.
Yeah, it's different, you know? And I think, and here's my thing, too. Like, I always like to respect people in the stuff that they do that's in your world, right? But then you also have to do the other way around.
Except for Milan.
Well, Milan is this is different. But there's like when I see people who do really well on Vine or, you know, social media stuff, that's a craft in and of itself, depending for your audience. But for those people out there, you also have to understand that when you go into acting, when you go into doing stand-up, this is also another craft. You can't do those same little tricks over here because now you actually have to tell a story, and there's no jump cuts to go ahead and help you out. You just have this audience. You have to tell a story, and you have to finish it from beginning to end and take them somewhere.
That's I think a healthy way of kind of understanding that is things that go viral maybe are funny, but it's not funny goes viral. Social media is it's marketing. It's not, and there's creative advertising and there's jokes and there's beautiful shots and you could have amazing commercials. But people who are successful on social media are advertising their brand well. But when you identify your brand as that, unless you're an ad agency, that's where you get into some problems. I am probably the best basketball player you've ever met. It's insane. But to put me in a football field, I'm probably just, maybe top 10%, but I'm not NFL worthy. Do you understand? Based on your response right now, I want to see if I'm reading this right. I'm getting good at this. I lost you.
No. I'm like, I was just thinking in my mind, is good at basketball a Jewish thing or something?
No, and that's what's actually, if you take away the Jewish thing, I'm just like really good, but not fantastic. But as a Jew, oh my God.
He's good for a Jew.
What did you just say?
Is Jew a racial epithet?
I think it is.
I don't know.
I wonder, I feel like Jew to Jewish is not as bad, but in the same field as Oriental to Asian. I feel like Oriental might be worse. In fact, just in case, bleep it. But you could keep me, but just put the beep on.
Well, I only found out when I came to LA that Jap is a racial epithet for Japanese people.
Unless you're talking about a Jewish American princess.
Okay, well, that's completely different. I had no idea.
And I recently found out that Japs are also in Australia because of the A. It's Jewish Australian princess.
Oh, we're finding out new things today, aren't we?
Yeah.
Jap.
Dude. I think I was talking too fast. I think I drank too much coffee.
You had an edible, then you drank coffee.
Oh, I forgot about the edible.
I don't know how the fuck that works out.
Well, I mean, I had you show me your balls and play air guitar. It's a Christmas music, so I think it's working pretty well.
Are you on any social media stuff aside from like Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and I got on TikTok recently because I posted just this one video and it went viral on TikTok. So I'm like, oh, I'll try TikTok, but I don't really use it.
TikTok fucking hates me. Every time I post a video, they take it down. Like
they're very, very sensitive.
Yeah,
and so is the audience.
I had no fucking idea. So I'm just.
You'd have to probably even bleep that.
Yeah,
seriously.
Because I curse in my videos, and so when I cursed, they just took it down as bullying, and I'm like, yo, who the fuck am I bullying? What are you talking about? I'm just talking my shit. But I did like 3 videos. And then out of, I think only 2 came up. And 3 videos got taken down out of a total of like 7. So it just, I got sick of it. I'm like, I'm not doing this shit anymore.
Tell me about YouTube and the success you had with that.
YouTube was interesting, right? Like YouTube was a way, social media has its great positives, right? Because before, there was like a gateway to entertainment. Right, you had to go through these certain steps and ladders and hoops for anybody to watch you.
You're talking about pre-YouTube?
Pre-YouTube.
You're saying basically getting a co-star on a show, then guest starring, then maybe being in your own show or a small role in a movie and building up. Right.
It's kind of like what I guess like the current comparison would be what podcasters did. What podcasts did for comedians. It allowed people to kind of develop your own platform and create your own fan base. And that's what YouTube was doing.
Right.
So I actually found out about YouTube in terms of you uploading your own content when I was going to Sacramento State.
What year is this?
Oh, shit, I don't fucking know.
Probably 2006 for you, right?
Somewhere around there.
I just remember I found YouTube around 2005.
Yeah, and I was only using YouTube to watch like ripped movies and then learning how to fix my fucking car. So I didn't know that you could use your login to upload your own videos and shit. So there was this YouTuber named Shane Dawson, and he was doing comedy stuff. And I remember
Wuhan Shane Dawson. Put his Instagram handle here.
Perfect. And I was sitting in class, and it was my sociology class, and they brought up this comedian for some type of example. And then I remember watching his video. I was like, oh shit, he's popular. He's not fucking funny. And then I'm like, I can do better. And so I started doing like these small little sketches or whatever. And the rants that I would do with these one jokes were all failed stand-up bits that never worked. But then when you put it into this video format, you chop it up in 3 minutes and you make these rapid fire jokes. People found it really funny.
The art of the jump cut.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's an amazing device. Seriously, it's an amazing device.
Exactly. So I started using these really fast jump cuts with every failed stand-up bit that I had. and then I put it in these videos, and it started doing well. So YouTube from that point on was like, okay, this is my way for me to become a better stand-up comic, or just to get people to watch me.
Could I show people real quick this a different device, still using jump cuts, but not the same game? So in case they don't know what that means, is that okay?
Yeah.
So basically, what we do is take the dead air and cut all the spaces. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I like butt sex.
Is that kind of what you're talking about?
You fucked me up, didn't you?
I said that you like sex, but it's important to love the person. And that's what we did.
You look like you're fucking lying. You did some shit.
I'll tell you what, how about I just show people what it really was unedited?
Okay, please. I like butt sex.
Okay. I know we come back and now the sunlight's gone. It's just dark. This shit takes so long. What the fuck were we talking about?
I don't even fucking know.
YouTube. They found the jump cut. And then you basically, it's editing. Annoying people are amazing edited. Because you just take the hits.
Let me tell you this. So like recently, a few months back, I did something with somebody who was very popular on Vine, right? And when I started to understand why these, and it wasn't just one person, it was like multiple people that I saw on Vine or like these short form platforms. And when I was trying to have a conversation with them, it's like, holy shit, you guys now talk like how you perform on Vine. Like they always feel they have to do a quick bit 24/7. And I'm just like trying to have a regular conversation, right? And I understand, like, you know, when you're a comedy, like you make jokes and shit, but it was weird. It was like this erratic energy. And I'm like, I understand now why you stick to short form content, because you can't do long form.
Question, are these people that you're close with, or are these people that you had just a couple interactions with?
Oh, there's a couple interactions with.
I have a hypothesis on this. It is, they are with a comedian, maybe someone they either look up to and or sees as successful and or just likes, right? And they're on. I'm on when sometimes, you know, that's one of the things that I became aware of a few years ago is how much I'm on and how exhausting it is for everyone. When people are on, they go to their thing. Everyone has a different thing. A Vine person has a Vine thing. Stand-up people with characters have character. Everyone has a thing. I don't think that's as much of this has changed their life versus when they are. I'm around comedians all the time. Especially when I was younger at comedy clubs, those people, I didn't realize this because I know me. They don't know me. They only know comedy club, Rick at a comedy club, Rick. And they think that's who I am. So you see these people who are trying to be on, that's my thought is that's what it is. Does that make sense?
That's exhausting.
Yeah, and you know, it is. And there's a lot behind it. And my podcast has accidentally or inadvertently kind of dissected this a lot with comedians because how layered that stuff really is. How much that I don't want to get too much into it because I've talked about it, but I still have OCD, but my OCD was real bad as a kid. And there were so many devices I had to come up with in a survival way where if I put it into a joke, it takes away how weird this part of me is. I get to control it, basically. So these devices, comedy is a language. It's not just for jokes, you know? And these devices became kind of instinctual. And I would do things. I'm annoying you because at least now you took your shoes off. And I'm like kind of like the cost of controlling my world in a way where I feel safe was bothering people, annoying people, always being on, etc. So when I see people doing that, I feel kind of, and I don't know if it made it in this podcast, but when you were setting up at the beginning, I told you appreciated the work that I was doing, or more specifically like the setup, because you know what it's like to have to do all this bullshit.
Yep.
And I said I feel like a bond with people. I feel even when people annoy me, I see that it's like I see some of the trauma that makes you need to do that, and I love to dissect it. Anyway, I think
that's a very kind thing, because sometimes I just want to look at them and put my hand on their shoulder and like, hey man, shut the fuck up. That's what I want to say.
Don't put it on TikTok.
And then just relax. It's all good. Maybe it's also too because I think sometimes when we see a quality in ourselves that we don't like personally, It irritates us more when we see it in somebody else.
And that's why it's important to not look at yourself as a loser, because then you don't like that part of you, and look at it as that's somebody who's on step 1 or step 2.
Yeah.
So when you see that in other people, you're not seeing someone who sucks, because I didn't suck. You're seeing someone who just isn't as far along. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think for you, like you definitely have a lot of empathy, you know. Obviously, because you can really see a lot of these qualities in yourself. I mean, I feel like I do too. I just, at a certain point, I think once I hit like, I don't know, like 25, I just stopped giving a fuck. Like,
Stop giving a fuck about what?
Like certain things, it's just empathizing with people is something that I do internally. Like externally, it's hard for me, right? Just because it exhausts me sometimes. Like
what is figuring it out is exhausting? What exactly is exhausting?
Like caring. Like
that makes sense. I understand.
Yeah, you know, like caring to a certain extent of I now choose who I should care about and who I shouldn't. Because before it was I would try to care about everybody, and that took away from me so much. Mm-hmm. Right, you would take on a lot of people's problems because you feel so bad for them all the time. So I actually had to do the opposite, where it's like you got to learn how to really be very sparing on how much you care about certain people. So sometimes when I meet people like that, and I'm just like I'm not rude to them or anything, but in my mind I just go, you don't have to worry about this guy so much. That's what he's dealing with. So yeah, you know,
it's just like yes, no. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe not, but it's just I don't need another. I don't need to be friends with this person.
Yeah,
I totally get that.
Yeah,
it's less about like, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just I think it comes from this podcast. Like having this podcast and getting into these conversations with people and finding out why and how people think. It's not as calculated for me anymore. I'm not sitting there being like I remember there was this David Foster Wallace gave I don't know when it is. I saw it a few years ago, but he gave this commencement speech somewhere. And I've seen people kind of meme this condensed down a bit, but basically somebody's mean to you in line at a grocery store, but you don't realize something horrible is happening to them, and they're like you don't know how somebody's having a bad day, right? Have you heard? Do you know about this thing? Basically, like, you're in line at a grocery store, and a kid says, "Mommy, can I have this?" And you see the mom yell at the kid, "Put that down!" And you're like, "Oh, that woman's such a bad mother." But what you don't realize is that woman's father just passed away that day, and all these. So it's less about calculating, I wonder what the trauma is with this person, and more about understanding how much I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, for sure I do that. I mean, I started doing that, not recently, but like a while back when I used to have road rage, right? And I didn't have road rage until I came to the city. Like I had no idea what road rage was until I came to Los Angeles. And then I started realizing to myself, and I'm like, you know what, David, you're probably like a bad driver yourself, and you're not perfect either. So who knows what's going on in this person's life? Just let it go. I started doing a lot of that. It was just allowing people just to be upset and angry, being like, you don't know what the fuck is going on. And I started doing that even with my parents, right? Because I think as an adult too, now that I'm getting older and I see my parents age, now I'm looking back at certain things. Why my dad did things the way he did was because of trauma that he went through, right? So for example, my father and I had our last fight was about like 4 or 5 years ago.
I have a clip. I'm sorry.
You motherfucker! You know, I'm like, yo, where did you get that?
But it is a real clip, like all this setup to having that.
That's like perfect. But we had this moment where my dad, he looked at me one day, and there's like this one thing that I hated was he would take credit for the stuff that I would do, right? And so he said, "Oh, you're a great comedian because I supported you." And I stopped, and then we were having dinner. I was back in Sacramento. I'm like, nah, that wasn't the case, bro. Like, you literally said, if you don't do the things that I tell you, you are no longer my son.
Things I tell you, the career path?
Like career path or anything that he did, right? And I looked at him and I was like, you did not support me. I did this in spite of what you said, right? And he didn't agree. And so my dad says this really funny line. He goes, what are you talking about? I said I was going to put you in comedy college. And I'm like, what the fuck is comedy college? What the fuck? Comedy college? What are you talking about? And so he's such a spiteful human being. He goes, you want to see? And he goes online and he finds
I cut to a clip.
He goes,
sorry,
let me cut to a fucking clip. No, and then he shows me this shit online. He goes, this is a comedy college. It was like a theater program at like Stanford or Yale. I'm like, I have to get into those fucking Ivy League. What are you talking about?
This is Juilliard.
Yeah. And so, but what I understood at this point was, and my mom kind of helped me understand this as well, was that he's always just wanted to connect to his kids because in some type of way, because he never had a good relationship with his own parents. And so his idea of what a healthy relationship with his kids is a fantasy, right? And so what my mom told him to at this point, this is what I found out about him, was I was like, if you want to have a good relationship with me, right? Number one, you need to just talk to me like a person. And I've always wanted this relationship with him because I'm very close to my mother. Like, we talk on the phone 3 or 4 times a week just for fucking shits and giggles, right?
They're in Sacramento still.
Mm-hmm. And so he looked at me and he said something very profound. He goes, no, I can't do that. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, your grandparents, my parents, never did that for me. I don't know how to. All I know how to do is provide. I can ask you if you're okay, if you're healthy. You want me to empathize with you? How come you can't do that for me? I never grew up with this stuff. So my way of communicating that I care for you is how I speak right now. This is all I can do. I'm 60 something years old. I don't plan on changing. So if you want some empathy, do it for me too. And I stood there and I had nothing to say. I was like, holy shit. I haven't empathized with him at all because I had an idea of what a healthy relationship is because of what I grew up with, like in this state, right, in the United States. But like in Korea, it's very like transactional. It's like, are you okay? Are you healthy? Did you eat? And that's how he shows his love. I just chose not to see it because it wasn't defined in how I wanted to receive love, you know?
You said at the beginning, I had a bad relationship with my parents. Mm-hmm. It made me wonder if they're still around. You said had, so things are better now?
Oh, things are a lot better.
Since then?
Since that fight. So it was a mistake on my part, you know? So I kind of had to grow the fuck up. It's like, hey, bro, like your dad is 60 something years old. He's told you how he grew up. And then I had conversations with my mom. She was like, your dad had this idea of what he wanted in a family. And so she told me this after, remember I told you about a year and a half I didn't talk to them, and she kind of she brought this conversation back up now that I'm a little older and I can understand it better. Because your dad had a terrible relationship with his parents. Like your grandfather didn't manage money well. He was poor out of his fucking mind. There was a certain point where he was homeless as a kid, and there's just all this other stuff too. And he goes, when he came to the United States, he did it for you, and he had this idea of what a family is. And you weren't fitting into this mold. And so for him, he felt like he was losing grips with the family ties that he wanted to grow up with. But your dad's problem is that if he wanted you to be a Korean ass kid, we should have stayed in Korea.
Yeah.
And so he didn't understand that either. He was like, okay, so there's this thing in Korea where you have like multi-generational families live in one home. Mm-hmm. It's like the thing.
It's like the Jews in the 20s.
Yeah. And so he wanted that here, but then my mom said to him, if you wanted him to be like that,
is your mom also first generation, or excuse me, you're first generation? Both your parents are from Korea.
Yeah, I actually immigrated here when I was 3 years old.
Oh,
yeah.
So you're a dual citizen?
I don't think you can have dual citizenship, so no. I used to when I was younger, I think, though. But
you can't with Korea and America?
I don't think you can.
So you're American only?
Mm-hmm. And so when she kind of helped me understand that point of view, where he was like, you should feel bad for your father because he wants to connect to you. He had this idea of what a close family is, but because he has poor communication skills that he got from his parents, he can't talk to you. How sad is that? That he wants to create a strong family household. He wants to develop this relationship, but he just doesn't know how to communicate. So you need to kind of soften up a little bit and understand your father.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but we actually have a surprise for you.
Oh.
We had your father come in to have a conversation with you.
Oh, during COVID.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David's father.
Dad, I'm so proud of you. You've never told me that before. Thank you.
We'll be right back after a word of our sponsor. Sponsors.
Hi, I'm Douglas with Trivia Ronin on Twitch. In honor of our 100th episode this Friday, I'm hosting a 24-hour live trivia stream to raise money for Girls Who Code. So if you support brilliant women making more brilliant women, or you just want to show off your big fucking brain, I hope you'll join. Thank you so much. The details are below.
Drips and Swirls. This is a business of yours, one of many.
It closed.
Did
So-
it?
yeah.
Because of COVID?
You son of a bitch. No, it closed before that. I actually went into a crazy story about that. It happened because of some shit ass partners that I had. But it was a very fun project of mine. I love ice cream.
June Matcha Tea, is that open?
Junbi Matcha is still open.
Junbi Matcha, okay.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just fucking around.
Oh, wait, so it didn't close?
No, it did close.
Oh, then I am. I'm sorry. Have your dad come up again. He's disappointed at you at a failed business.
Dad? All right. I get it. I decided to go into the food space because I really, really love food. Prior to the person that you see now, I used to be like 300 pounds. So eating was my shit.
300 pounds?
Almost like, it was like, I kind of say like 280-ish on when I woke up in the morning. That means like I was probably like 290
Do you
actually.
have a picture we could put up?
Yeah.
Oh.
You talked to
It
my
was that.
fiance?
Have me being horrified, a monster picture, not him, and then you're not allowed to be horrified by people anymore, by their looks. That's a thing that's happened recently.
Yeah.
Everyone's good looking now.
Yeah, it was, what's it called? Normalize. That's what everybody's trying to, normalizing is the hottest thing right now. But yeah, I used to be like 300 pounds or so. And I didn't know that I was that fat. Like I was just living life.
It was until your next girlfriend said you're annoying and you're fat.
I actually know the moment that I realized how fucking fat I was. Like, true fucking story.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
Okay.
So I was eating with my girlfriend at the time, fiance now, and there was this couple that walked in, right? Two people, and they were really, really large. And as we were eating, I was looking at them, and I'm like, oh my God, people are fucking huge. And then my fiance, no shit, looks at me, she goes, what? She goes, those people, they're really fat. And she looks at me, she goes, you're fatter than them. I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? I'm not fucking fat. And then I was like, hold on a second. Am I a fat person? Because I assumed I was chubby. I'm not even fucking lying. She legit.
How do you not know that you're at a weight that is unhealthy?
I don't fucking know. My self-esteem is really high. And so, like, I'm sitting here like, yo, am I fucking fat? And then I started having like these little flash moments of me being a fat person. Like my shirt felt a little tight. And I would always blame it on these European cuts. I'm like, oh, these fucking European t-shirts, they don't really fit like they used to.
Blaming everybody for your problems.
Exactly. Like this Samsung washer's a piece of shit. It keeps shrinking my fucking clothes. But I was like, oh, I'm a fat person. Like diarrhea shouldn't be something you have every day. You shouldn't have heartburn every day. And then there was this moment, and I stood on the scale. I never stood on the scale. Got on there, and it said like 280 something in the morning, which means I'm like probably 290 throughout the day. And I'm like, I'm a really fat person. Not just like physically, but I'm really unhealthy. And then when you're kind of big, you just normalize your pain. Like you don't think about this shit because it's just stuff that you deal with every day. But you shouldn't have to feel back pain all the time. Mm-hmm. Your knee shouldn't hurt when you go up and down stairs.
Now, more Jewish stereotypes, by the way.
Okay. And then I listened to this podcast with Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how stupid people are in terms of their health. How they don't like discomfort simply because it's uncomfortable in the moment to achieve something greater. And then he had somebody named Dr. Rhonda Patrick on, and then David Goggins came on. And David Goggins was telling a story where he used to be 300 pounds, and he's my height. And he is this gangster-ass motherfucker, right? And he talks about this perspective of, you don't have to do what I do. You just have to try to be the best person that you can. Like you're going to have regrets. And I just listened to that podcast every day for I think 2 months straight as I walked. So the first thing I did, I just walked every day just to show that I could complete something. And I lost, in the first month, I think I only lost like 2 pounds. And then the second month, for some reason, I lost like another 15 or 18. And then from then on, I lost a total of like 80 or 90 pounds after that.
And you got into dieting or food in a certain way? Or
Yeah.
you just had an appreciation your whole life?
So the food part, and it was funny because I was the biggest when I opened up the soft serve spot. And that probably didn't help either because I would just eat soft serve every fucking day, you know, and I'm lactose, which didn't help either, which probably attributed to the diarrhea that I had constantly.
More Jewish stereotypes?
Okay. And then, and then I lost all that weight. And during that time too, I was having trouble with the soft serve shop because I was having a lot of issues with my partners. For example, one of the main partners who got cut out, that piece of shit, I'll see you around, you fuckface. He was, number one, stealing. He was funding his private dinners that he would do through the money through the soft serve shop. Didn't fucking tell us. Within the month that I revamped this business and we started doing well during the summer, He decides that he was just going to go to like EDC and shit and just fucking drop E and leave all the employees for a week by himself without him. And he was supposed to run the store.
This isn't important, what I'm about to ask, but I got to know. I never thought of it before. You talked about revamping something.
Mm-hmm.
When you do it the first time, is there such a thing as a vamp? Like you vamp it and then you revamp it?
What? I don't even know what a vamp is.
The little, like goblin vampire bite your neck. We'll see how much time we have. Yeah, I've never really kind of thought about the origins of a revamp.
What is a vamp?
I feel like vamp's got to be short for something like reefer vampirization or something.
You just blew my fucking mind.
Well, we'll put up a definition if we could find one.
Awesome. So I redid this business, and then he did a lot of funny shit. Like this was like the last straw was when he started, stealing money from the company or whatever. He would just bullshit about stuff that he knew, and he never did any fucking work, and he was taking a paycheck from us.
How many people were involved in this?
A total of 4.
So he's 25% of it.
Exactly. And so we decided, because contractually he wasn't doing his job, we were going to kick him out, and we can legally. And so
You have to buy him out though, right?
yeah. At this point, though, because he made a lot of poor decisions, the business wasn't making any money, and he just kept buying new equipment for the stuff for his vanity because he was this highfalutin chef or whatever. So he wasted all the company's money. And so we're like, okay, we got to kick this dude out. And he did the funniest shit. Call him up, and I'm like, hey, where are you at? Like, we need to have a quick meeting, and this is going to be a serious conversation. Leaving these voicemails for him, he's not picking up at all. I'm getting pissed off at this point, super upset. Finally, I get a call from one of our partners. He goes, hey, he actually had a seizure, and he was in the hospital. That's the reason why he couldn't pick up. But I know this guy is a habitual liar. I'm like, oh, so he was sick, right? He was like, yeah, he was lucky because he was going to a liquor store, and his mom was next to him, so she was able to take him to the hospital. So he, super fortunate. Cool. Well, hold on a second. So me and my partner, we decided to call his sister. And we're like, hey, did you know your brother's in the hospital? She goes, oh my God, he's in the hospital? I was like, yeah, you should probably tell your mom. I was like, he said that your mom was actually there. And she goes, my mom's in Korea. I'm like, oh. So to avoid a fucking serious meeting, he lies about having a fucking seizure, and he hides away in his apartment. This is the type of human being he is. And I got so fucking pissed. And so, it kind of ended up, he had to leave. After that, it got worse because apparently one of the other partners and him had maybe a romantic interest. So she was emotionally attached to them.
Fucking each other? Sucking each other off?
Probably.
Eating each other out?
Eating ass only. That's all they did was eat ass.
Another Jewish stereotype.
It was a terrible idea. They were both lactose intolerant. And so she would sabotage the business too. And she had emotional attachments to him and the stuff that she would create, which she knew nothing about food. And so we just decided to just liquidate the whole thing and just get rid of it. Yeah, so that sucked. But after that, we started up. During that time, I was also doing another business, Junbi Matcha, which we now have. I think we are now opening 3 in Texas and then 3 out in Jersey.
And how many are there right now?
There are a total of 2 open.
And are they both, you own them both, or are they franchised?
So those 2, me and our partners personally own.
So those are the flagship, and then you guys are franchising to 6 more?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is that your big side business?
That is the big side business right now. And then we also have a couple of other food businesses. We basically have a food group. So Eat Shrimp Daddy, Chichi Dango, and also Wing Chicks.
I want to ask you about this a little bit. I have to pee. And do you mind if I go pee real quick?
Oh, go ahead.
Do you have to pee?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Sorry. I always thought it'd be funny to piss your pants on stage as a bit, but I didn't want to do it because it's it's like having to carry a prop around the country. Now I have to piss my pants every time.
It's like, so you're the piss guy.
So I thought I could do it on the podcast once, and if you're noticing, I changed my pants. It's because I just pissed my pants. But and boy, are my arms tired. But yeah, you were telling me about your father and your failed business. And I'm sorry, I had a piss pants instinct, but I had an edible. Shout out to Kiva, who I'll send this to see if they'll sponsor. So you have you're about to franchise 6 businesses. You have a couple other ones. You were a musician,
Mm-hmm.
then you were a comedian. Do you identify as it seems like at the top of the list it's entrepreneur, because within there is a comic personality as well. How would you define what it is that you sell? And more specifically, I don't need to be more specific. What is...
That's funny you asked that, because I don't fucking know. That's something that I always struggled with, right? And I think the reason why I'm very mediocre at a lot of things is because I get bored really fast. So I just do whatever I feel like it's a thing my manager just gets pissed off at, because I'll just do whatever feels right. I actually don't know what the fuck I am, because I'm not a great comic. I'm not a great musician. I just do whatever makes me happy. And I try to be good at it, right? One of the
it seems like you're a very successful entrepreneur.
I mean, we're trying. We'll see what happens this year. I mean, it's 6 franchises. I never thought that's something that I would do. And it turns out that I just found the right people to do it after I found, like we talked about leveling up. That was my first food business. And I fucked up so bad with certain partners, and I made these mistakes. I recalibrated, and we did better.
They're the 6 owners. Are they all people that you've met, or, excuse me, not owners. Yeah, owners that are opening them up. They're vetted?
Yeah.
Or are they re-vetted? Revamped?
It's with my buddies Bart, Joe, Jeremy, and these are all people.
Wuhan Bart.
Yeah, Wuhan Bart. So Wuhan Bart, and then
and there's 2. It's 3 in Dallas, and where are the other 3?
It's Richardson, Texas. They're all in Texas, and then there's 3 in Jersey that are opening up.
So the 3 in Texas are Bart. He lives in Texas.
No, we all live here.
No. I'm asking who are we going to be managing these 6? Because it's my understanding that when you franchise something, the biggest obstacle is finding somebody you could trust who runs it.
Well, so how franchises work? Whoever buys it, they'll be managing it.
Oh, so it's just franchise. They're paying you 7% or whatever the profits are.
Yeah.
And then they pay a one-time fee.
Mm-hmm. And then but the difference is we also give them a lot of support. So the biggest difference is for that we want to set apart from everybody else is that we really want these to succeed. It's not that you just take the franchise and then do whatever you want with it. We want to give you. I want this to do well. This is our baby project.
Then isn't it important that you find who it is that's managing it?
Oh, so there's a huge vetting process before you even get the franchise.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So we do have to meet. Because there's a lot of people knocking on our doors, which it's amazing.
Why? Because they know you, your brand, things you've done. They're like, we want to be in business with David So. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean maybe, but maybe they something that they see that we've created. But we do want to make sure that the people who do open up these stores are good people. Like they're going to care, because there's a lot of people out there with money that just want to franchise a store just to like dump money out or do whatever with it, but it doesn't mean that the store is going to be successful. So there is a vetting process. We do have to have a conversation with you, meet with you extensively just to see if you do care, if you actually care about the brand, because we also want to get to know you on a personal level too.
Tell me, Ronnie, something in tea. What is it called?
Matcha tea.
And it's so how would you describe what this business is?
Matcha tea is a green tea leaf. It's actually the actual tea leaf that's ground up that you drink. So versus other teas which are dehydrated, and then you steep it, and then it bleeds out, and then you drink it or whatever, right?
So defensive for me to say this. I know what matcha is. So okay, I meant specifically this business. It's just like a matcha tea house. It's just different matcha teas.
It's matcha that's successful. So it's fun drinks, right? So we mix like fruit stuff with it. That we also have like little snacks and drinks with it too. So essentially, what we're trying to do is really make matcha accessible, because everybody has this concept of what matcha is. It's like you have to be very ceremonious with it. You have to, it's like in this very highfalutin area where you get it from a very specific menu. But matcha is
highfalutin. Is that as in money?
Just like fancy shit, you know what I mean? But matcha is very accessible in Japan. Everybody drinks matcha. Like even in our farm, the farmers drink it in a cup and they mix it.
So matcha in Korea is kind of just like coffee here?
In Japan, yeah.
In Japan.
For sure, 100%. Like it's in Kit Kats, for fucking crying out loud.
I've had matcha Kit Kats.
And they're fucking delicious.
And incidentally, the first time I found them was with Jackie, and we were at the Glendale Mall. There's this candy shop that has the candies from all these different countries. It's amazing. And the it's probably Japanese. I don't know. It's I don't know if it's just Japanese or if it's Asian, like more Chinese as well. But there's something very there's a style very. It is Japanese. There's actually I'm going to put it up if I remember. I sent one to my girlfriend. There's this company that sends you these. Maybe you know of it. These boxes every month, and it's all Japanese candies. There's a certain look to it. There's colors and styles. It's so attractive. Anyway, Jackie's favorite Kit Kat happens to be a matcha green tea one.
Yeah, I mean that's just how accessible it is, right? And so we're trying to break down that stereotype. We really are trying to make matcha like coffee, like accessible. So when people talked about matcha before, and a lot of the matcha that people have here just sucks ass. It's this dark green brown bullshit.
Very strong tasting.
Yeah, it's super bitter, and matcha is not supposed to be bitter. And I found this out going to Japan. Like, I've been there 3 to 4 times, and it's like, yo, this is what matcha is supposed to taste like, and I had no idea. So when we start these food businesses, we're trying to bring that experience that we have when we travel back here for other people to try, and we want it to be accessible.
Is everybody involved, both the 4 of you, and it's now just, is it just you and Bart?
It's me, Bart, Joe. There's like 6 or 7 people involved.
Are they all Korean?
No.
Anybody white?
No.
What about the 6 that are picking up on it, starting it? Any of them white?
No.
So I get my point is, do all of them share in that idea of, we want to be the people that introduces matcha? Like, we want to be the main matcha people.
I mean, I think that's what we want to do as Junbi, yeah. Like, we want people to really have it in their house like they do coffee.
Right. And how do you do that? It's fun, it's colorful, it's fruity. Is it healthy? Is it for kids? Is there a big range? People that are already sophisticated, highfalutin matcha drinkers, or are they going to come into your place and be like, I also like this?
Well, I think the main thing to do is to really get people to understand what matcha is, right? Because right now our biggest barrier, I wouldn't say it's coffee. It's just the idea of what matcha is to people. It's too fancy, which it can be.
Could we show a commercial that explains what matcha is?
Sure.
Okay.
Matcha is absolutely delicious. It has antioxidants. It has anti-aging benefits. Also, it should be very bright green and a jade color to be extremely smooth when you drink it. You could have it hot, you can have it cold, and you could have it at any time of the day. Did you know that matcha actually has a chemical compound in it that allows caffeine to be released slowly into your system so you don't crash like coffee does to you? Matcha, it's the best thing you'll ever try, ever.
Whoa, David, it sounds like matcha's pretty great.
Fuck yeah, it is.
I have had matcha a couple of times. I never really connected to it. I would like to try yours.
Oh, I'll give you a tin, the whole shebang. I think I already sent it to Jackie, so I'll get you one too.
How's COVID been handling? How have you guys been handling COVID?
I mean, that was definitely a struggle. We switched over to doing a lot of online sales to make our matcha even more accessible. So people can actually make our matcha stuff with our online store now. So you could have it shipped to you.
How do the people who are franchising it get? Are they able to have online business too, or it's all rights to you? They just get the brick and mortar.
Shit, I don't even know. I didn't even think about that part. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't think about that. That's the other partner stuff.
How is it, bro? Or do you and the 4 or 5 others? Do you guys all have a main specialty, or do certain people work better with certain things?
We all have our own positions. So I'm an investor, and I'm also in the marketing side. And then
so you talk like coming on podcasts and just making it part of your brand online.
Exactly, yeah. And then we also deal with a lot of branding, like kind of like the voice of the company.
I love branding. I've always been attracted to certain things. My girlfriend is a creative director and builds brands. That's literally what she does. She's helped so much with my podcast. Her and I are talking about a certain thing which I don't want to mention now, just because why would you talk about something so early? But we're working on this brand that we're super excited about. And this is a pretty generic question, especially considering that I'm not even telling you yet what it is that we're doing. But what advice would you have for somebody who's starting a brand? Is that I can make that more specific, but
no, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I'll talk about my personal experiences that I failed at was defining the voice, like your company why. It's such a
company what?
Company why, the why. Mm-hmm. So it's such a generic answer, but it's super fucking important because everybody skips it. They skip the company why, right? And if you can't define what you're doing in terms of what you're building in one sentence, then you don't have it. It should be really quick. That's why these company slogans do so well and it connects with people. Nike, just do it. It's very simple, very straightforward. People can understand it. All the people that I've known that started a business and it wasn't working well is because they couldn't define it in a sentence and they didn't know their company why. So if you don't know your company why, how is your customer base supposed to understand? Mm-hmm. And so that's where you should start. If anything else, don't even fuck the logo, fuck everything else. Do that first. Then the logo comes. And once you figure out your company why, then you can attach everything to it. That means every move that you make after that when you build a business should go back to that. If it doesn't touch base first, then fuck it.
It's like when you're designing a room, you get the couch, the rug, or the blinds first, and then you have everything go to that.
Yeah, and it's so important, and I did that a lot. Like I didn't understand what it meant, and then once you fail at a couple businesses.
So what's your why now? Making matcha accessible to people?
So for us, it's Jumi Matcha is to make matcha accessible, but our thing is prepare daringly. So we want people to take their matcha wherever they go.
Prepare daringly.
Yeah, that's our slogan.
That makes me think of years ago. I saw an IKEA billboard. I love, and I reference it often. Be bold, not beige.
Oh.
Which is different. That's
I like that.
I love it.
That's fucking dope, and that's gonna stick with me. And if once again, and look how short that phrase is. Be bold, not beige. That's so dope. Fuck, I wish I would have thought of that.
Well, unfortunately, you didn't. But if you at home want to be bold, and if you already got your blinds, or if you're looking to start, I advise you check out Marshall Rug Gallery in Cleveland, Ohio. If you're looking for just the right flooring, you need choices. And at Marshall Carpet One, you'll find thousands of choices, including carpet, hardwood, rugs, and luxury vinyl. So make the right choice and visit Marshall Carpet One and Rug Gallery. And we promise, with more than 50 years as a family-owned business, we've got you covered! Tell me about best leftovers ever and how that starts, because you are it's a Netflix show. Jackie Tohn, you, and who's the third judge on it? The woman
Rosemary
from France?
Schrager.
She's fantastic.
She's hilarious.
These three personalities the tone of the show happens to be comedic. Maybe it's an accident. Maybe that's what all three of you guys bring. I mean, it's a real cooking show, but it's like silly. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
You have a Korean musical comedian entrepreneur. You have a Jew bag comedy singer, which, by the way, just in case you don't know my relationship with her, I love Jackie so much. She's my only ex I'm still in relationship with, and I couldn't think higher of her. And then we have this French woman who, when I first watched, I thought, oh, she's going to be
I think she's British.
I thought she was British, but I watched an episode where Jackie mentioned something about her being French because of her French accent.
She doesn't have a French accent.
There was an episode where the waffle wasn't.
She legit sounds like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, she's bold.
Yeah.
But there are three people that probably never met before the show, and don't share a voice. But you guys seem like you're this.
I mean, it's easy with Jackie though. Like Jackie could fucking talk to a doorknob if she wanted to. She's so fucking good.
She does.
Yeah, I know, bro. Like I just woke up one day, she was talking to a fucking doorknob.
I got to tell you this quick story, and I'm sorry I'm interrupting so much. Jackie, maybe she still does, but for a while she would do like clean people's closets and take them to consignment shops and run this little side hustle on eBay and all these things, and she would take a percentage and blah blah blah. She always had stuff in her car, and people would always give her stuff. She has a lot of famous friends, so she always had all this fancy stuff in her trunk. And I remember we were out getting coffee somewhere. Should have been Matcha, but who knew at the time? And there was a woman inside who was sitting like this. Maybe she was cold, but she was sitting like this. And Jackie thought she's probably cold and went out to her car, got a jacket, probably some super nice designer jacket, and gives it to this person who wasn't. First of all, that's a tough move. Even sometimes I see homeless people, and you want to give them something, but if they don't have a sign. Do you ever walk by a homeless person? Sometimes I'll walk by a homeless person multiple times, waiting for an in, like I'm waiting for a pickup line, like eye contact, so I could be like, "You want something?"
Well, once you get dissed by a homeless person, it kind of scares you from doing it again.
Have you ever been dissed by a homeless person?
Multiple times, and I just like, yeah, fuck this guy.
Wait,
man.
what happened?
Like, okay, so there was somebody that had a sign that said they were hungry, and so there's two restaurants. This is in UCR at the time. There's a Taco Bell, and there's this like OG like Mexican restaurant. I'm broke. I'm a broke college student. So I get some Taco Bell, and I get this person Taco Bell too. I'm like, hey, bro, like, here you go, man. Here's a taco and shit. This person looks me dead in my fucking face. He goes, what the fuck do I look like? I want that shit over there. I'm like, oh, I didn't know we had options, motherfucker. And I felt like shit the whole day. Because I was like, okay, maybe I was a little presumptuous that this person should be grateful that I give them a taco.
So is the presumptuous part that they should be grateful, or just that they might want it?
Well, he didn't have to fucking look at me like I'm an asshole.
Maybe he was talking to someone else. Cut to a clip. Just like, what are we doing?
His eyes is just off this way.
Yeah, what you don't see, we just come a little wider, and there's someone behind who's like offering him a banana peel. You're like, what do I look like? Wait, where's my taco?
Yeah.
Yeah, I ask. I don't know if it happened and I don't remember or not, but I can't relate to that. But that is kind of a thought I have. Like, I don't know if they want this. Like, if I were homeless and somebody offered me macaroni and cheese, I wouldn't take it. Mm-hmm. So there's that moment. Anyway, the point I was making is Jackie, she's my mom, but she just talks to anybody, a doorknob if need be, and then also make friends with them right away.
She's so good.
Is that the emulsifying agent? Everyone brings their own thing. What was day one? Did you feel like it was Jackie's show and you're coming in because she's the host, or are you all on the same page?
This is how fucking dumb I am. I walked into a chem test, right? It was chem test. I had no idea it was a chem test.
In case people don't know what that means, it means basically they're doing science experiments.
Yeah. So I walk in and I'm just like, I just got done doing Muay Thai. So I'm all sweaty and shit. And I walk in and then my manager's there. He goes, it's a chem test today. I'm like, oh, yo, what the fuck? I thought this was like a general meeting with like the production. Like, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And so when I was just talking to Jackie, I didn't even know she was the booked host for the show. And so it was just casual as fuck. And when I left, I'm like, oh, I fucked that up. Like, I had no idea what was going on. But, you know, she just made it so comfortable. She's so just likable and funny. And I think you're right. She's kind of the glue that kind of just puts everything together. That's why Rosemary, she's so funny, because she allows her to be so loosey-goosey, you know?
What does that process look like? You did Muay Thai. You're just sweating. You think it's just a general meeting with producers, which still, you know, you said something earlier. I thought it would be funny on a shirt. You said something about you're very self-confident. I don't remember what it was.
My self-esteem is really high.
My self-esteem is really high. Cut to you going into this. I thought it was just a general meeting with producers, so I'm not showered for my Muay Thai. You're just comfortable, which is great. It's obviously your brand. And then you go in, and then you have this thing that you didn't know what it was until your manager told you. How long from finding that out to leaving do you find out that you booked it?
It was like a few days after.
So you have to already have a deal in place before your chem read, which you didn't even know about.
Mm-mm.
So somebody else, that your manager had your lawyers take care of it. You're Muay Thaiing, writing tons of businesses. You go in, a deal is made, and then you find out just like that, I'm on 8 episodes of a television show.
Yeah.
Is that, because you're not new to this, what does that feel like to you?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't really think much. like it just is life. So,
well, that's a big deal, booking something.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I feel I'm very grateful for these things, right? Like, I always have this attitude of graciousness, but it just kind of felt like, oh, that's really cool.
That's cool. So it was just another, it was a win.
Yeah, it was a win. I'm like, this is dope. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think too much about it. Not because I wasn't, like, once again, I'm not grateful for it, or it's not an awesome thing that happened. But I don't know why I don't tend to lean into like these small victories or these big victories, because maybe I'm looking for the next thing after. But yeah, it felt good, but I wasn't screaming at the top of a roof or anything.
Decent
like
money though, right?
Yeah.
So is it that, because back to you saying you don't know how to define what it is that you do. Mm-hmm. I could empathize with that. You book this side thing, a voice on a cartoon, or 8 episodes on a television show, or a reoccurring role in something where it's like, awesome, more money. It's always fun to work and meet new people. But that's not the plan. That's just, a cool win along the way. To me, it's creating stuff and directing it. Like, that's what I want to get to. I want to be in it. I love acting. I would love to be able to direct it, though. So when I get to do a commercial for my podcast and do a silly rug commercial, I think, like, I want to make some. It's part of what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Where if I were to get the role, the thing that you got, it would be awesome. I'd be so excited. But it's not. It's just another thing along the way. I guess what is? Do you have a thing?
The thing that I actually cried when I found out that I got into Sundance.
What'd you get into Sundance for?
So I did a film that we sold with my buddy Justin Tohn called Gook. And it was a black and white film.
Like slime.
It is a racial epithet for Asian person, Gook.
It's the kike of your kind.
Yes. And so...
Bleep everything. Or put his word in my mouth and my word in his mouth. And no, don't do it. Don't do it.
The funniest thing is we had when we got into Sundance. I was in Mexico, and then I got the call, and I started tearing up.
Was that when was this? Last year?
This was 2 years ago, and then
Sundance 2019.
Yes, I believe so. 2019 or 2018. And I cried because my personal life story and work is in that film. You know.
Did you write it?
So Justin Chon wrote and directed most of it, and then I wrote my personal life story in there. So I didn't really write it per se, but then I put a lot of input in there.
But you're not in it.
I am in it. So and I produced it as well.
Where could people see it?
You can see it on Amazon right now.
Cool.
So it was on Netflix and all this other stuff. It's on Amazon Prime, so you can watch it there. And that was something that when I completed it, it made me cry because of all the time and the effort that we put into it. And this is my first film ever, you know, producing, acting, and then writing a little bit of it too. So who the fuck thinks that on their first go that they're going to go into Sundance, you know, especially because I have no formal training or anything else like that. Obviously that's a lot to Justin Chon. So when that happened, it was one of those moments that shocked me to my fucking core. And I remember I just started tearing up and crying because I felt very validated. The reason why I wanted to do film at that point was because being in social media, and a lot of these like agents got burned by social media artists who wouldn't show up to auditions because they thought they were above these roles, right? Mm-hmm. And they just didn't want to sign me. They're like, "Oh, we'll sign you to our digital stuff." It's like, I already do digital. Like, let me try this out. And so they just weren't interested in me. I'm like, well, fuck you. I'm gonna make my own fucking film. You know,
what part of you is validated that you're good enough at something that is not internet?
It's more like, I told you I could fucking do it. Like, I told you. Like, I can act if I want to. Like, if I put my heart and soul and my mind, I can do this shit. And so when people keep telling me, no, you can't because of what somebody else did to them, they kind of put red tape on me, you know? So it just gave me that validation. It was more like a fuck you. It was like, I told you I could do it. And so when we got into Sundance and then we won like the best audience award for the film, and then we sold it and they got it on Netflix and everything else. They had like a theater run for about a month or two.
Amazing.
It felt really good. Being able to create something from your personal story and having people relate to it felt amazing. That's that shit that I think I'm always looking for, right? I feel that way with Junbi Matcha, being able to do that and then going from one small store to 2 to franchising 6 more. And so when Best Leftovers happened, because it wasn't something that I was planning towards, it was great. Like, I felt good. It didn't feel like the same when I, did the film or when I franchised Junbi.
I could relate to that. I made a web series called The Sixth Lead. That was something I was a sixth lead on a sitcom, and I felt I had a lot of insecurities about it, and I made this web series that took place on the Warner Brothers lot with all the actors and the writers, and it was very validating to make that thing that wasn't a full reality, but feelings I had, to then see it, and then also it to come out and people like it, where it was like, I knew I wanted to create stuff. It was then that made me sure I wanted to direct. Cut to a clip.
Listen, I know my position on the show. I'm not looking to be the star. I don't want to be the star. I'm the 6th lead, and I get that.
You're the 7th lead.
I just want to talk to you about some ideas that maybe I could put into this to make this a little funnier.
I've been trying to get a Papa Shop B story in since season 2.
I got a Rick Gladish. Are you sure you're not Rick Gladish?
Yeah.
Yeah, how nice would it be if you could do something other than talk about boobs on the show?
Thank you. Can I just pitch you some things?
Yeah.
All right.
You mentioned red tape, and I think I know where red tape comes from, and I'd like to tell you the expression red tape. When war vets, before there was the insurance and the medical care that they get, the vet, I don't remember what it's called, but whatever it is, they would actually have to physically go down to Washington and wait in line for proof that they were in the military, and all of their files were wrapped with red tape, so they had to cut the tape before they did it. I learned that on The West Wing. I might be wrong, but I'm watching.
Is
The
that
West
for real?
Wing. Yeah, that's paraphrased.
Oh shit!
But something about vets in Washington and West Wing.
There's a lot of shit that we say. We just don't know why we say it.
Yeah, I remember. That was the first time I told that story, or should I say, my first vamp.
Oh,
vamp. That's what it is. When they're like, keep going, vamp.
I don't think so.
Okay. You can leave in the last 4 minutes. That's fine, but I just wanted to acknowledge I missed my dismount there. So whatever, or Mr. Mount.
So you direct. Well, I mean, look at this whole shit right here. This is awesome.
Everything's going to be blurry. That camera's been out for 10 minutes, and the audio's not going to sync. But.
Like, this is fucking amazing, and it's just a black screen.
Yeah. Neither one of us could see each other through the reflection.
I appreciate this, though, because, going on Bobby's podcast, everything is set and done for him. And when I see this, it's like, yo, you really care. That's why when I was watching your podcast, I see all these, like, little... you made me feel like shit about my podcast, by the way.
Thank you.
That's the goal.
I just want everyone to know how much their stuff is whack.
I just have one angle because I'm so fucking lazy because I don't want to have to go ahead and split it between multiple screens.
Almost all podcasts are that way.
Yeah.
I decided to do this because it was a fun creative outlet, and also I want to find a way to do more. And then I bit off a lot from this podcast, and I'm not going to complain because I do it every 5 episodes. It's a lot. It's my life. So there's pros and cons to it. I mean, you have 37 businesses that are in multiple. You're in Sundance. You got a Netflix show. I know Sundance was before, but we're adding bit and stuff. I'm very proud of myself from this podcast because I always don't want to do it, and I've decided to do it, so I have. And sometimes you feel good about the things you make, and sometimes you don't. Maybe you don't want to do it, or you don't feel good enough, or you're just you're not riding the pocket, or whatever it might be. But something for me that keeps me going, at least a big part of it, is at rickglassman.com. It's the webpage that shows all the thumbnails of everything, and I've made all the thumbnails. And the thumbnails take me way too long. They shouldn't, but they do. And sometimes I'll go to it and I'll scroll and I'll look at all my friends, all the cool people I wanted to meet that agreed to do it. Look at all the stuff I've accomplished. It almost feels like a little trophies. And having built something that has been so difficult, this is very corny, but I do feel good for me sometimes, and I appreciate you saying that. It went from me trying to make something better than it needs to be to part of an identity almost. Like other podcasts have been talking about my podcast, and they bring me up for good production value, and I do it all from... Anyway, I really appreciate that.
No, it's dope. Like I always like watching people care about the stuff that they do, and I think because podcasts have become something that everybody wants to do, it's hard to make something that's different from everybody else's, because at the end of the day, it's great conversation. But I remember just seeing a clip of your stuff. I'm like, man, my podcast ain't shit. That's the first thing I thought. And when it feels good that you say that, because I do have moments, because I do 2 podcasts a week, where sometimes I'm like, you just do fucking one. Right? It'll be a lot easier. Just do 1 a week and you'll be okay. But then I go back to those moments where I feel like I didn't want to do it and I still did it, and it's there and it feels good after. It's like,
well, why not go to 1? Because you've committed to this 2 and you think it's the right decision?
It's just because I said I was going to do 2.
Right. I know. It's like Inception.
Yeah.
You said you were going to. At what point? It's like when you stop working out, which happened for me a while ago. But when you work out, when you miss a day, it's easier to miss a day. And then it just kind of, in order to police yourself, you kind of have to have these rules. And rules can be broken, and some aren't prioritized, but there has to be some fundamental. For me, this is what I want to be doing. Podcasting or otherwise, but creating stuff. So the moment you let yourself slip, I mean, you have your cheat meals and stuff, but there are certain rules. So that is one for you. You feel like I said I'm doing 2, so I'm doing it.
Yeah, and even this year, because this is the second year that I'm doing it, I was like, this year you're only going to do 1. And I didn't. I was like, nope, you said you're going to do 2, so you're going to stick with 2.
Right.
And podcast 2 is interesting because it kind of proved to me, or maybe it proved to everybody else, that people actually like long-form content. And
interesting you say that coming from YouTube like that.
Exactly. So I used to do 3-minute videos because at first people's attention span were super short. If it went past 3 or 4 minutes, your views would drop dramatically. And obviously when podcasts came out, it showed that, hey, people want to listen when you talk or when you speak. And so it was actually refreshing, because sometimes I would do these videos and I would make these quick jokes, maybe even sometimes about sensitive topics like current event stuff or whatever, right? And I'm supposed to talk about this in 3 minutes, Right. So it allowed me to expand on my thoughts and allow people to understand where I'm coming from when I say these things. I mean, jokes are still in there, but you know.
Yeah, I think more specific to what YouTube is, podcasts are its own genre that also live on YouTube.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I still think short form is the main part of what, I mean, even vlog, that YouTube changed their limit from 10 minutes down to 8 minutes where you could add multiple advertisements because they know short stuff. But podcasts are its own animal. And I think that, you know, there are people that watch on YouTube and listen on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, and they go to both. But there's a huge, the main podcast market was listening only. And I think within the past, you know, less than 2 years, it not only has YouTube been accepted, now a lot of people's YouTubes are more successful than their audio only. But the people that watch podcasts aren't just YouTube people. They have to be two things. They have to be YouTube people and they have to be podcast listeners, which is very interesting from a marketing standpoint, because when you're on YouTube and you want to get eyes on it, you're looking for a podcast audience. You're not looking for a YouTube audience.
Yeah.
From a very superficial and a quantifiable aspect, if you get somebody who's super famous, but if they're not a podcaster, they do a fraction of the views. Does that make sense? A person that may have no idea who Bobby Lee is because they don't listen to podcasts or comedy versus, you know, Bradley Cooper. Bobby Lee's podcast is going to do way better than a Bradley Cooper one.
Yeah.
So it's anyway, I just bring that up because the podcast audience is a very specific audience, and you came from YouTube, which is different.
Yeah.
YouTube is not podcasts. Where are you now? Do you do both?
So when I did the podcast, I lost like 500,000 subscribers.
Because they wanted to see that other thing.
Yeah.
And that's why people have separate channels for it.
Yeah. And I, once again, commit hard. So I commit.
You can't tell me no.
Exactly. And it was a good thing for me. So my videos don't monetize because I curse a lot. I say shit that may be controversial or whatever. And so I actually can't monetize about like 80% of my content. And when I found that out, I was like, okay, I got to make a living, you know? So I decided to go into podcasting because essentially it's what I was doing anyways. It's just longer.
But
so,
you could swear on podcasts.
Yeah.
You're saying it's just different because it's more watered down with it's not as gratuitous?
Well, because now I have sponsors.
Oh, so it's not YouTube ads, but sponsors.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, you know, the YouTube stopped making money for me. There was this thing that people called adpocalypse that happened. And before
was that last year, because I never heard people talk about it, but I noticed something with ads happening.
It was like 4 years ago.
Oh, that was before I was on YouTube.
Yeah, so 4 or 5 years ago, there was, I believe it was the Logan Paul guy. He did the Japanese person hanging in the forest type of shit, and then a lot of advertisers like, wait, hold on a second. We don't want our content to our ads to be on this, like our Huggies Pampers shit to be on this guy's videos.
Oh, that's when they started like limiting ads?
Yeah, it might have been from him or somebody else, but his was one of the bigger ones. And so this is when a lot of advertisers were pulling out. And that's when YouTube's whole platform changed, where now you have to answer very specific questions before you upload the video.
That just started not even a year ago.
Exactly.
Those questions.
So that was to give people a reason as to why they couldn't monetize. So before, we wouldn't know. And so just to give out some numbers, prior to that, when my videos were doing well, your stuff would be pushed to the front. Everybody would see your videos.
What's well? $1 million plus?
It would be like an average 300,000 to $1 million.
Is this sketches or podcast?
This is sketches.
Right.
And so these videos, like just on YouTube alone, like I was making about like 15 to 20 grand a month.
How much for a $500,000 video that's only 3 minutes? How much money were you making on it?
A $500,000 video.
Excuse me, 500,000, like 500,000 views.
It would depend on your CPM. So
Right.
for me, my CPMs were a little lower than everybody else's. So the CPM, for anybody out there who wants to go into YouTube and you just want to do it solely for money, make kids content. So the CPMs are a lot higher.
Maybe I'm giving away too much, and I have ideas all the time I'm never going to do, so whatever, he at least is documenting it. But I had this idea a bit ago where I wanted to make a kids channel, in the genre of kids channel, colorful, I have a new retainer, pardon me, colorful sets, you know, really energetic, positive personality, the costumes and stuff, but not satirize it. Make it an authentic thing. And I wanted to see if I could build a kids channel.
Do it. You should do it. 100%. Why not?
Would you come back and be a guest and be a kids host with me just for an episode?
100%. I'll put on my best leftovers.
Yeah.
I'll leave all the cursing and all the personal.
We're not making fun of it. We're doing it.
I would fucking love. I actually love children's programming is the shit. Like that's how I learned how to speak English, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Reading Rainbow, all this other stuff. I love kids programming.
Okay.
Yeah.
So CPM is cost per 1,000 views. M is the Roman numeral, I think, for 1,000 or something like that. So you were making 20,000 plus because how we doing? One sketch a week, 2 a week?
This is 1 to 2 videos per week.
So you were making between 4 and 8 videos, making 20 to 30 grand, did you say?
Yeah, 15 to 20.
15 to 20 grand. So
and that got dropped down to 1,000 in a matter of a month.
Because they demonetized so many of them.
They literally went through my whole channel and every one of my videos were demonetized. So I went from that being my main source of income to going to about $1,000 a month.
15 to 20 grand a month. What an amazing. Also, it's archived, so it's just passive income. It's just coming in like royalties.
Yeah. So if I didn't do any videos, let's say at all, like 6-7 grand a month would come in. And so
wow,
but
you're not making, even with your podcast now, you're not making YouTube ad money.
No, I'm not. So that's why the viewership really matters when people comment and when people watch the podcast. Also, I'm so fucking grateful that people even give a fuck about me. To watch my shit till this day. I'm always grateful for the fan base. And there was a period too during that time when I was losing weight, I generally stopped doing YouTube at all. Because I had to go ahead and fix this part of my life. I appreciate my fan base so much because even after that hiatus, when I came back, there was still fans there that wanted to watch my stuff. I decided not to do as much YouTube, and clearly I was doing others. I was still auditioning and everything else, but I had to take a few things off my plate, aside just from food. I had to fucking lose this weight, and thank you, and then figure this out. So when I came back, I wasn't sure if people were going to watch me again, and then lo and behold, people still did. They still fucked with me, and I appreciate it a lot. However, when I did start the podcast, 500,000 people disappeared.
Yeah, this isn't what we signed up for.
Yeah, and the people who did stay, they were like, "Oh, this is kind of like the same content, just longer." But I did explain to people, it's like, "Yo, this is the best avenue for me." And plus, I didn't want to keep doing these 3-minute videos where I was just jump cutting everything. I got tired of it. You do it for about...
You grow out of stuff.
Yes.
I connect to that.
6 or 7 years of it, and I even look back at the stuff I did back in the day, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible.
That's what I'm talking about with people documenting in their 20s, their year one stuff into this big audience. It's like, you're not going to like this. You're not going to like this. Your podcast is very, very casual. I like to have that too. I mean, I do research... Sometimes, I mean, I always do something if I don't know about it, but like, I like to consider my podcast, with the exception of some people who I need to ask them questions, even if there wasn't a podcast, more conversational than interview based. That's what yours seems to be. Is that a device that was organic, or is that something that just feels more sustainable, especially doing 2 a week? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. I mean, originally it was supposed to be a comedy podcast, and then people just started crying on my podcast. I was like, yo, what the fuck is going on? I was like, oh, this is just, you're just shooting shit with friends. So sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. And I think that when I was putting...
Same, I get that.
It was too much pressure to do something so specific.
Yes.
And it kind of like pigeonholed me. I'm like, you know what? If people want to talk about serious shit, let them talk serious shit. We're just here chopping it up. So at that point, I was like, you know what? Just let it be whatever it is. And I remember like there was this podcast where I had a friend on, and we hadn't spoken in a very long time. And for some reason, the podcast makes people a little more comfortable than they normally are. And I started finding out personal stuff about them I didn't know before. And I'm like, yo, this is also great conversation too. It's not jokes, but it's an amazing conversation. So just let the podcast be whatever it is.
It's been great because how often, even people that you're close with, you have a 90-minute one-on-one conversation. At this point, it's closer to 2 hours, one-on-one uninterrupted conversation. It's like when you're working together, you get to know somebody because you're forced to be with each other. I think there's something, not just the product that I'm creating, but really that I'm very grateful for the opportunity I've had to meet people or get to know people I already know in this specific genre. What's a difficult instinct that I wrestle with is this value and identity of being funny, which is what I've been working on, and it's just one of the aspects, basically the always being on thing. But like, when I first got the cameras, my goal was, I was wanting to podcast. I was wanting to podcast for years. I recorded so many that I never even put out. But the cameras were, I have such funny friends. I want to set up cameras around my living room and just talk and jump cut and just take the fucking golden moments. So I thought, well, podcasts, I've been doing them. Basically, instead of just waiting for a friend to come over, you invite them over. So just do that. And then make videos. But and shout out to George Kreekis, by the way, who's helped out with the podcast, especially more at the beginning. He and I were having this conversation because he's a podcast listener and I wasn't at the time. And he said that because I wanted to put this podcast out and at least have video for social media clips. I also thought I could obviously put them out, but at the time I didn't know the power of YouTube. I didn't really appreciate it. So I started putting them out and like, great. But it wasn't until I saw that once I went on YouTube, uploading mine, I started watching YouTube videos and I started wanting to do more and it built and built and built and I keep adding and adding to the video aspect of it. But the main point of what I'm making is my instincts are like, who cares? You know, like maybe somebody cares, but like who cares? How self-indulgent could you be? That's part of the reason why I add so much because like, and I've said this on a podcast before, when the pandemic happened, a lot of people cashed in to podcasting because it's a money grab, and that's fine. I mean, it's what things are. We all try stuff. We're inspired. I don't feel any resentment toward people doing it. You know, I was doing it before, and then people come in, and there's part of me that feels like it's very superficial, but part of me feels like I'm a real podcaster. Like I was doing this, you know, not just because that's what everyone was doing, but people do this, and there's some people that. And it's fine because this isn't their life or they don't want to put too much time into it. But how interesting do you think you are? Well, you just sit down and you're just like, yeah, man, fuck. So how you doing? It's like, get to it.
Yeah.
I just licked this, gross. But there's a fine line between who gives a shit versus showing people really like why I love having it in my living room and why I won't have a producer come in, even if I get one, and why I won't bring it to a studio unless I could make it look like a living room. I like the idea of people aren't watching a podcast. I know this is corny, but the tone is they're sitting in the living room with us.
You know, that's what one of the bigger reasons too, obviously because I'm lazy, that I don't have a second camera. But there was a comment that did really, so I tried it once where I had 2 cameras split and it had a lot of thumbs up on it. They're like, we hate this. I'm like, why do you hate this? They what you just said right there. They go, I like having that one angle where it's wide because it feels like I'm the third person sitting in this conversation with you guys. And I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome. You know, people do, and podcasting too is a lot harder than most people think, right? Because a lot of people think they're interesting, but they're actually not.
That's what I'm saying. First of all, some people are interesting sometimes. Most people are just not interesting.
It's like the same thing with, you know, people who think that stand-up comedy is easy, right? Where you just go up and do jokes. It's like, yeah, you're funny in a small group setting, but now you have to make this whole room of people who don't know you, that don't have a background idea of you, make them laugh.
It's putting ability to the craft.
Yeah.
And like there's a craft to this.
Stand-up is like, till this day, it's so fucking hard, right? Like I haven't done a comedy club in like 3 years, you know, and I'm nervous now because if somebody asks me like, yo, let's say the pandemic is over, right? And they go, hey, I want you to do like a 10-minute set. I think I'd shit my fucking pants. It's been so long.
Said you were nervous before when you were doing it too. You're just you get nervous with performing. I'm the same way. It won't go away.
I mean, I hope not. I mean, because I appreciate it so fucking much. When I see stand-ups do what they do, a part of me is like jealous, and the other part of me is so proud. Like when for example, Tiffany Haddish has her program, right, where she brings up all these comics that don't have such a large platform. Yeah. And these people that maybe I haven't even heard of. I'm like, fuck, these people are so fucking funny, you know. And I never got to hear about them because they didn't have this platform. And so sometimes I get a little sad when I see these comics who I would have never saw before until I saw it on that program. So I appreciate what they do so much.
There's a saying, I don't remember who it was, but I want to say Mark Cuban, and it's about businesses and not actors, but it could be applied to anything. It takes 10 to 20 years to pop up overnight. Like, oh, this person just overnight success. It took them 10 or 20 years for that.
Yeah, and when it's stand-up too is just so unique, you know. And I think because I started doing stand-up at such a young age, whether it was good or bad or not, when I stepped into the auditioning room, the auditions didn't feel as bad as when I did stand-up, you know, because I had to perform to 2-3 people in a room. I had to do that to fucking 50 or 80. And
it's getting experienced in failure that makes you calloused and strong.
Because I remember the first audition that I did, it was so terrible. Because once me being a dumbass, I for some reason I read this script as something comedic, and it wasn't. I was supposed to be like some kind of forensic scientist, and I don't know why I thought it was a comedy role, but I did it really funny, and the casting director was like, so that was interesting. can we try it a different way? And I looked at the script and I had this moment where I'm like, you fucking idiot. This is not a comedic role.
Right.
And I bombed it. I went to the car. I laid my seat back and I screamed. Oh, and you.
That's forward.
I was facing this way. And I screamed. But after that, I was scabbed over. I'm like, this is actually not that bad. You've literally done sets where nobody fucking laughed before.
Yeah.
And you just had to eat that shit.
I did a sitcom, Undateable, and the last season was live. We did it live. We did the East Coast and a West Coast version. So it was a very high stakes. By the third season, I already felt relatively comfortable in like this kind of stuff. I mean, I wasn't the most experienced, but you know, as you get more experience, you get more comfortable. You feel more safety. When you bomb, it's less important to not bomb, etc. But after specifically doing live, being on the, I felt this like it's all made up, so it's not real. But I felt this thing like I've done this before. Whenever there's something, I mean, I still get nervous, but there's certain things that having had done a live season of television made me feel like, you know, it's not that. So anyway, I just wanted to connect with you on that.
And you know when I first started doing when I first came to LA, I wanted to be a stand-up comic, and it obviously shifted into something else, right? I started doing sketches and writing instead. Back in the day when you were a YouTuber, a lot of stand-up comics hated you. Like they fucking hated you.
Yeah, there was some serious stigma. There still is to YouTubers.
Yeah.
You're a YouTube guy?
I've told the story on my podcast before, but at this point, I started trying to do stand-up when I was 16. So I've been in clubs, like I've done this. And I had a spot at the Ice House in Pasadena. And I was like, oh, cool, I get to do stand-up. Like, and I have somewhat of a very small name to myself, so I could draw a small crowd. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know about this crazy stigma that people had toward YouTubers, right? Because I didn't consider myself a YouTuber at the time. I was like, I did stand-up.
Right.
You know, I'm a stand-up comic. People didn't see me that way. And I remember going into Ice House, and there were a few comics that just, they looked like they fucking hated me, you know? And I was like, yo, what's with this shit? And I remember this conversation that I had with this one stand-up, and he bombed that night. Terrible. He wasn't even good, right? Which
nobody is, my friend.
Like, he wasn't even good. And I'm like, okay.
12 people are funny.
And so he was like, oh, so you do, so he goes, so you're that YouTuber. It said it just like that. So you're that YouTuber. And you could tell like he had a little salt on it.
Yeah, there's something, pardon the interruption, but it's a perfect analogy. In order of least to most offensive, but still offensive, YouTuber, Jew, Oriental.
Yeah. And so I kind of felt that negativity towards me. And he goes, yeah, I've been doing stand-up for like 3 or 4 years, which isn't long, you know? And he goes, so if you need some pointers, let me know before I go up. I'm like, okay, that's cool. At this point, 16, I'm 24. That's 8 years, you know? And I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. I've been doing it for 8, so shut the fuck up. Now we'll see how you do. He goes up, he fucking bombs. And I'm sitting here like, why was he so pressed to put me down before I go up? And I never felt that type of animosity before. And what I also realized too is that I was kind of like him too. I didn't like that title of YouTuber because I'm like, oh, I want to be a stand-up comic. Mm-hmm. And I did another set later on where people asked me to come on because of the YouTube following to get a crowd to come in. And everybody on that list on that flyer was stand-up comic, stand-up comic, stand-up comic. And they didn't put stand-up comic on my name. They put YouTuber to fuck with me.
You think to fuck with you, or they didn't think anything of it?
Oh, no. I specifically told them put stand-up comic and they put YouTuber on it. And I was fucking livid, right? Because it was like a fuck you at the time. But they didn't know that I was trying to do stand-up since I was 16 years old.
Also, they didn't know cut to now where you're not a successful comedian if you don't have a YouTube presence.
Yeah. And I was so just, I kind of felt, I was just pissed, you know, just about that attitude. Because in my mind, I just wanted to be a part of their world, right? Or I felt like I was already a part of it.
There's a bigger picture, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was my goal to like
animate a mermaid Ariel part of this world thing, and then but keep going.
Yeah, and so like it was such a weird time, and then now you see it's the other way around where these comics are trying to do YouTube.
Oh, you do stand up? This is a YouTube room, my friend.
Yeah, it's like what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, where are you going to stream your show?
Let me show you something real quick, guy. But this is how it was for TV too. When there were certain deals that I had in the beginning that in order for me to be on that show, I had to delete my YouTube channel. That was a stipulation.
Oh, because they felt it was offensive?
It was competition. So they didn't
it wasn't about the brand. It was that.
No,
you don't sign that deal.
They hated digital. They thought it was stupid.
When was this?
It wasn't real TV. This is like when I first came. So it's like 10 years ago, 9 years ago.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah, they would. So here's another story. So my buddies Bart and Joe, they have a company called
Bart. We'll put his Instagram handle up here.
Just Kidding Films, and they were going to do a reiteration of I think it was In Living Color. And
I remember I auditioned for that.
Yeah, so they booked it, doing multiple characters, right? They do it like the SNL auditions where you have to do all these like different whatever, and so they booked it. Their stipulation too was, hey, we're gonna put you on this show, but you have to delete your whole online presence. That was their stipulation.
Did they do it?
They didn't do it. They're like, no, are you fucking nuts? And it was a good thing that they didn't, because
Well, the other actors who booked that, by the way, the show never came out, but in case you haven't heard of them, Bradley Koopa, who was actually King Koopa's son, who auditioned for Star is Born but didn't get it, and Jessica Princess Peach Beale. Oh, I don't know. added some laughs. I had some laughs.
What the fuck happened there?
Trust me, the math worked. I just, good writing, poor delivery.
Yeah.
Cut me some slack, huh?
Yeah, and it didn't release either, so it was a good move for them. But that was the weird navigation that we had to go through. Cut to now, where in audition rooms, people wonder what your social following is now, like how many followers you have. So they'll ask what your Instagram following is, what your social media following is, which is so weird now.
Now people get cast because they have a big enough following.
Yeah, which is a terrible idea, casting directors, as you're finding out that just because you have a following doesn't mean you can act, doesn't mean that you can follow instructions, doesn't mean that you're good on screen. So,
But maybe.
Some of them, yeah. Because that was the big thing. Like, I couldn't get an agent because they were going through those problems where they assumed that following would transfer over, or they thought that they would be professionals.
Yeah, like you could take your instincts of jump cutting and implement it into your podcast or something else, but it's just one facet of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to wrap it up just because I want to keep these things to a reasonable time for editing. But I would love to have you back sometime. I had such a great time with you, and I don't know, maybe it's the coffee and the weed, but I'm in a great mood. So I'm going to attribute it to you. I guess I need some big out. So thanks for coming. I pissed myself again. Theme music.
Scoot doo, blabbity blue, scoop dee. Oh yeah.